Hey guys, Chris Clothier here with another episode of the Grind Podcast. This week, we are focusing solely on real estate. So if you're ready for a real estate podcast talking, well, I guess I'm really not. What am I saying? It's starting a real estate business. That's entrepreneurial, isn't it? All right, so Isabella is agreeing with me that this is not solely real estate this week. It's entrepreneurial real estate, as we're talking about starting a property management company. For some of you that are like, man, that I have zero interest, believe me, this is something you're going to want to listen to, because it's not just about starting and how to start. It's the things you need to look at, and we as investors need to pay attention, because if a management company that we want to hire in some other city where we might invest, if they don't operate the way that I'm going to talk today, it should raise questions in your mind. So today's podcast is all about, hey, if you're looking to start a property management company, if you want to start small and do your own properties and maybe stretch out and do some properties for some other investors, and you're looking to, how do I break into this type of industry because it's something you're interested in, going from a side gig that you do for yourself to something that's a real brick and mortar business that you do for others. I've got 5 key areas you need to focus on, questions you need to ask yourself on the type of service you're going to provide, how are you going to provide it, how are you going to operate on a daily basis. So we're going to dig into that today in today's podcast. So this is very business oriented, but it's also very real estate oriented, because it really will shed some light for you guys on what makes a quality property management company. And there's maybe not necessarily one definition. There could be multiple ways to do certain things that are equally successful and equally good for the clients that are ultimately, out there being served. So with that, let's get started with another episode of the Grind Podcast. Before I get going, Isabella, how are you doing? Swell. She's swell. She's giving me the thumbs up. She's like keep going. Let's hit it, because I think she's afraid I'm going to talk for 35 minutes. Although I will promise you on the front end, I'm not. Today's podcast is going to be 20 minutes or under. I promise you. So if you're listening in the car, or you're listening, you want to try and take notes, you know that you have a set amount of time. I will be done in under 20 minutes. So let's get started. 5 key areas that you want to focus on if you're going to start a property management company, and things you need to be looking for if you're going to hire one. One of the big challenges that we faced when we first started our property management company was how to receive funds. And the reason why this was a challenge is that we faced a scenario when we did not own our own management company, when we were outsourcing. We faced a scenario where that company collected a lot of personal checks. They also collected a lot of cash payments, but they would also take certified funds. Back then, it was, this was early 2000s. Paying by credit card was not a big deal. It wasn't something that I think really, it wasn't even looked at as far as leasing payments. So, back then it was really cash, personal checks, certified funds. But this company, their policy was they would take anything. If it was legal tender, they would take it. And what ended up happening, on a Monday, rents are all collected. A couple days later, they're late. All the late fees and rents are being collected. By about the middle of the month, it's time for those rents to be paid out, and the money was gone. The lady, one of the people that worked for this particular property management company, and she was in the role of property manager, and this company had it set up where a property manager did everything within the company. She made off with the money. She went, I forget exactly what she did, but she headed off upstate, up north somewhere, and she took the money with her. So here we are as owners of properties with our rents have been paid by our residents, so they've done what they're supposed to do, but there's no money there to pay us as owners. Luckily, this management company was insured, and they were, certified? Not certified, but they were licensed by the state of Tennessee. So they were we were able to recover our funds that they could document had been paid. But when they started trying to document things, what started coming up was there were a lot of instances. Apparently, the theft had been going on for a very, very long time, because as we began to dig into our leases, because that's the first thing we did, we wanted copies of all of our leases, and the management company was happy to give them to us, because they were, the owner of this management company was just reeling. He didn't even know, which way was up at this point. We started looking through our leases and started realizing that we were being reported that there was no deposit on hand. So the resident moved into the home without a deposit. So when they move out, I'm getting nothing. But yet there is a lease signed by the resident where they paid a $500 cash deposit. A lot of deposits were being collected in cash, and then paperwork was being turned in showing no deposits. So she had been collecting cash deposits for a very long time. That gives you the background for that first consideration you have to come through. And for us, the hurdle we had to overcome was when we started our management company, we said no personal checks because we didn't want to deal with the bounce checks and the Saturday morning phone calls to residents telling them to come pick their bounce check up and pay the bounce check fee and get real funds in. And we didn't want to deal with any of that. We also certainly did not want to deal with cash. Cash was something that we severely frowned upon. We found ways to get it done if it was the only way a resident could pay. But even after a while, we figured out cash was something we never wanted to take. So we would send them down the street to the grocery store, to the corner store, and turn that cash into a money order or something that was certified, so we wouldn't have to take it. If you're going to own a management company, although it's simple for a resident to pay cash, it's simple for a resident to write a check, and there can be fees and possibly a little more difficult for a resident to bring certified funds. It's the only way to make sure that you are going to get paid properly, and with funding that's there and there's a paper trail of it. The resident, they can keep a receipt of buying a particular money order. Then there is a receipt on the other end when it's deposited, so they can see that it was deposited. I mean, it adds a layer of protection for owners. So if you're going to start a property management company, the first thing you have to consider is how are you going to get paid? I mean, how are you going to let residents pay you? And my suggestion is that you only use certified funds. Today, credit cards is a massive way that people are paying. We've got these cell phones here, and you've got apps on here that can help you pay rent. There's a lot of rental programs that allow you to pay your rent, whether you're using Apple Pay or you're using a credit card that's entered into your cell phone, but to use apps to pay rents. I mean, these are all very good, although there's still some danger in that because credit charges can be pulled back. But for the most part, it's much better than cash, and it's certainly much better than personal check. So that's the first consideration. The second consideration is how are you going to set up your management company? Are you going to be a company that uses property managers to manage a number of homes, like a portfolio of homes? Or are you going to silo your company where there are multiple departments that handle multiple different or that handle single day-to-day operations, so you're not crossing things over? I would say a vast majority of companies out there use the property management model where they are going to say, I've got 3 property managers and each manages, a couple of 100 houses, and they do everything. They do client relations, they do property upkeep, they do property leasing, they do property collections, they do everything start to finish on this group of properties. And while that's certainly, there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever, I will say it's hard to scale. And it also leaves a certain measure of, I'll just say, a lack of motivation. Because once you tell somebody that the most you can handle, there's a new ceiling to what they can do. For whatever reason, I can't even really explain why. Back in the day, we didn't go that route. And I think it was because we wanted to build multiple touches to our residents, but we also wanted to put a layer of responsibility in there. When the company that stole money from us, they had this property management system. They had the senior person, the number one person who was managing like their entire portfolio. And then she had some we'll call them minions that worked below her. Well, she ran off with all the money. She was the only one who really knew what was going on with all the properties. And that was something we were seeking to avoid, something you may look to avoid as well. We like the setup today of having a group of people who are responsible for renting the homes, and they are compensated through commissions to rent the property. Then we have a group of people whose responsibility is to interact with the residents, make sure that their move-in was smooth, make sure that any maintenance issues that they may have are handled appropriately. But they handle it for the entire portfolio, so you've got multiple people that are touching the resident and touching the experience. And then we also, on the back end, we have a different set of people whose responsibility is to collect rent. And so if somebody is behind, you've got a team of people whose sole responsibility is to build relationships with the residents so that they don't fall behind again, but they also understand the need to catch up and pay any late fee or anything like that may be incurred, although the number one thing is to get rent paid. So that's something to think about. I personally love the siloed approach. It has worked really well for us. I will say that I know several companies that use the manager system, and they would say that they feel like they're equally good at using that system. They like it just as well. For you, you need to figure out what works best for you and your management style. I will say this, that our style is we lead a handful of leaders, and then those leaders lead a handful of leaders, and those people lead a handful of team members. It kind of comes down from the top. You lose some of that when you don't silo it out, when you don't have people that are responsible for each division, when you end up with just single property managers that are responsible for a large group of properties. You have there's fewer layers. There's you, and then there's the managers. Now you can put a management position above them, somebody that's a senior manager that oversees everybody. I get all that, but it definitely you lose some of the hierarchy. You lose some of the what I call just those touch points where you can really identify and make quick adjustments if there's an issue. If we find that there's an issue in one particular area of our portfolio, say that we're seeing an uptick in maintenance or something like that, we can quickly make adjustments across the entire portfolio because we've got each of these departments siloed out. Okay, the third thing is systematizing your business. We like using Propertyware as our management system, but there are literally dozens of good ones out there for small and big companies. We prefer Propertyware. It's probably best for the big companies, but there's Buildium. There's suddenly my mind escapes me with all the names of all the different companies out there. I just gave Buildium I just gave them a plug along with no one else. So there you go. I can't think of the names of the other ones out there, but there are literally dozens of systems out there that you can use. And each of them kind of specializes in different stuff. And they all have their own little pieces that they built out, use it to, whether it's rent collections or providing additional services like insurance or cable TV, electricity. Some of them let you hook all those systems up through you so that your resident can go through you to get all those systems or all those different things that they want to use. It's very varying. It's very varying. That's bad English. There's a wide variety of offerings when it comes to managing properties and the systems that you can use. But whatever level you want to provide, whatever you want to pay to have that systemization in place, it's available for you. We like Propertyware, and there's still so much more customization that we can do with it. And there's even programs within Propertyware that we're currently not using today. They're not worth the additional cost to us. They don't provide the bang for the resident or for the owner that not enough for us to implement them. But that's my point. There's even more out there that we could do at some point when the value presents itself. Okay. Last two. One, are you going to be a manage anything or a specialty manager? There's some companies here in town, and I'm just going to use Memphis in particular, that they specialize in managing anything, and yet they specialize in managing nothing. So what does that mean? They do a lot of management, but they're not seeking to be the best at any of it. They're seeking to just take it all on and provide a service. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm not putting names out there because I'm not knocking anybody. Their shtick, their thing is, if you need it managed, we'll take it on. Can I get it done in 1 week? Will it take me 3 months? I don't know, but I'll take it on. We'll advertise it the way we advertise. We'll put our signs out there. We'll do whatever we want. If you want to fix your property up and make it super nice, we'll help you do that. If you want to leave it, with broken windows and grass 6 feet tall, that's fine. We'll manage it just like that and see if we can get somebody in it. That's the kind of management company that I do not want to be. All right. I would much rather be a company that specializes in particular areas, in particular types of homes, in particular types of owners. Let's just be direct. I don't want to manage for owners that don't want to fix their houses, that don't want nice properties. So what do you want to do? And I'm not saying that I'm better by any stretch. You just need to figure out, how do you want to be and how do you want to start? And you may not have a lot of choices. At times people that are starting off, it may be, I just need to manage anything I can to produce revenue. I get it. That's fine. But I think that the best of the best out there are the ones that specialize. They specialize in multifamily because they don't do single families. They're just a really good multifamily management company. Although I don't know any great multifamily management companies. We'll leave that there. I've talking to Isabella, and she's sharing with me the horror stories of renting different apartments in town. Is that right? All the different. She's had 4 different property managers, 4 different experiences in her relatively small rental history, and I don't think she had a good thing to say about any of them. Of course, I might be biased because I've got very little information to go by. But then again, I look at other companies, other management companies that specialize only in single family, and they do it really well. I mean, they don't try and do multifamily. I'll never forget, for us, we wanted to do multifamily at one point. We really dug into it and said, I have zero desire to do multifamily rentals. So pick what you want to do or decide you want to do it all. But either way, just kind of know the ups and downs of those 2 things. And then the last one is, where do your owner charges come from? Are you providing services, or are you planning to just charge fees? And what I mean by that. So if you charge a lease-up fee and it's anything at half a month's rent or above, you better be damn good at placing a resident into a property. And I mean really good. You have to provide a service. You're not filling them with a beating heart and a body and a social security number that passes. You're providing somebody that qualifies. And if you don't do that, then you're just providing an owner an opportunity to pay you fees. That's it. And there's really something to be looking at if you're an owner that's hiring a management company and they have really low fees. You cannot expect a lot of service, a lot in return for that. You're not paying much for it. If you're going to start a company and you want to try and keep fees low, you got to understand that low fees, low revenue, that does not give you a lot of opportunity to provide really great services. So you need to determine, am I going to be collecting fees or am I going to be providing services? And that goes down the line. Everything you do, you can either be the Ritz-Carlton or the Walmart. And don't hear anything I'm not saying there. Ritz-Carlton is known as a brand that provides very high levels of quality and service. They're known as that brand. Now, why would I not choose another hotel brand? Because I think there's another example of somebody that wants to be everything to everyone, and that's Walmart. They don't give a backside about the highest quality and the greatest experience you're going to have. They are hyper focused on providing the lowest price possible for the things you're getting there at their store, and that's what makes Walmart so great. Walmart is almost in a race to the lowest price possible with all the competition, and that's how they're keeping people away. Like, there is no competition because they can beat everyone on price. A brand like a Ritz-Carlton doesn't try and beat anyone on price. They're pricing their product for the person that wants the highest level of service. That is a great analogy for the two spectrums you can provide in property management. Are you collecting fees or are you providing services? I'm not saying one is necessarily better than the other. They both work. You can collect low fees and provide low services and try and do high volume, or you can do lower volume and just and charge higher fees, but really provide a greater service for it. You better, or else you're not going to be in business long if you don't figure out that your offering has to match your price. So those are the 5 things that I think property managers really need to answer for themselves going in is, how are they going to collect money? What are the funds going to look like that they're going to take in, and understand the pros and cons of all of those. Are they going to use the manager system, or are they going to silo all the different needs of your owners and residents? What system are you going to use? And there's like I said, there's a bunch of them out there, and they're really, really good. Each specializes in something different. Then are you going to manage anything, or are you going to really specialize in the single family homes or multifamily, or this part of town versus that part of town? It's important. It's very important. And then lastly, when it comes to your charges and how you collect revenue, are you going to price high and try and meet the expectation of delivering a really superior experience and product, or are you going to compete in that race to provide the lowest rate to prospective owners, but also kind of make sure they understand that that may not mean that the greatest. So you may not be able to provide a whole lot if you're not collecting a whole lot. That's just something you have to understand as an owner. And then we also, as when you flip this around, today's podcast around, if you're looking to invest in real estate and you're going to hire a manager, you need to understand that too. All right, Isabella, how we do? I am, dadgummit, look at that. I am at 21 minutes and 10 seconds right now. If you stuck with me for that last minute as I was wrapping up, I really appreciate it. That means a lot to me. I try and be accurate on the front end when I tell you how long this is going to be. For everyone that likes our podcast, that shares our podcast, anybody that ever makes any comments or sends us any emails, any reactions whatsoever, I just want to make sure you understand we greatly, greatly appreciate it. We've been adding over 1,000 listeners a month, and those listeners are interacting with our newsletter. They're interacting with Kent Clothier's bi-weekly, twice a month. Yeah, I'm not sure what that is. Twice a month executive newsletter, which did we have one go out last Sunday? Or is it coming up? I'm not sure where we're at in the rotation there, but pay attention because they're really good. I love reading the newsletter because I love to read when he's working with his writers, when he's working with people that are helping him put these things together. The stories he's telling, I'm cracking up because many of these I remember back from my childhood. So anyway, hopefully you're interacting with everything that we're providing. We greatly appreciate all of everything that you're doing for us to keep us driving forward with the grind. And until we get a chance to talk again, guys, commit to the grind, and we will see you again next week. Take care.